Hey, welcome to Sipper Social Club. I'm Jeremy. Today, I'm going to review a magazine article by Whisky Advocate. They did a special report titled Black Market Bourbon, Flipping American Whiskies, a Booming Market. Kind of just give you my thoughts on the article, maybe a little insight with my own experience on the secondary market. So let's get at it. Flipping Whiskey, How Desperate Drinkers, Powerless Distillers, and Shameless Profiteers Shape the Bourbon Black Market. The article is written by Sean Evans. He's also done stuff for New York Magazine, Men's Health, Robb Report, usually commenting on cars, tech, luxury lifestyle, and of course, whiskey. The article starts out with Sean interviewing an anonymous whiskey flipper who uses the alias Paul H. The article describes Paul as a high-end whiskey flipper, someone who can quote-unquote get you any bottle you want within 24 hours, someone who moves 30-plus ultra-premium bourbons a week, someone who's very well connected with liquor stores who get allocation of rare bourbons and rare whiskeys, someone who is in it just for the profit. He is not a whiskey enthusiast, not even a big drinker of whiskey, someone who only sees it as dollars and cents. Basically, Paul is a middleman for flipping whiskey. He uses his connections with liquor store owners to buy their allotment and split profits with them as he sells them on the secondary market. He is one of the reasons why you can't find rare bourbons on the shelf. Situated just outside New York City, Paul says he spends up to 15 hours a day driving to different states, picking up different allocated bourbons from different liquor stores throughout the country. Paul might be considered the scummy side of the secondary market, but it's not just him responsible. It's also the store owners who are getting their allotment of the rare bourbons. They call up Paul. He comes over, privately purchases it from them, and then they split the profits on the secondary market. In the article, Paul says he has no remorse for what he does. He says not to blame him. He says blame the bad allocation for bourbon in the United States. He says blame the control states. He says blame the media, like the Wall Street Journal, who publishes articles about how bourbon is the best investment you can make nowadays. He shows no remorse for what he's doing to the bourbon market. The article then gets into some more reasons why the bourbon secondary market has boomed as much as it has in the last 5 years. Citing Owen Powell, he created the online Facebook group Bourbon Secondary Market, the biggest social media group of bourbon flippers and enthusiasts that reached 55,000 members at its peak in 2019 before it was shut down by Facebook. The Van Winkle family had a big play in that. They were hiring lawyers and pressuring Facebook to shut down these secondary market groups. And you saw every major secondary market whiskey group on Facebook collapse in 2019. Personally, I think the Van Winkle family were a little misguided in taking down the Facebook groups. I think the real issue is the distributors and how they allocate bottles to different liquor stores, and then those liquor store employees choosing to either privately sell it, which then get flipped on the secondary market, or pricing it at secondary markets themselves. You can take a look at lots of different online retailers, and they have allocated bottles for crazy, crazy numbers right on their website. When the Van Winkle family was questioned about their motives, they were mostly citing they didn't want any counterfeit bottles to be out there and being sold. And whereas there are some instances of counterfeit bottles, it's not that common on secondary groups. The monitors of these groups did an amazing job of sniffing out and finding people who were counterfeiting bottles. In my experience, I've only seen one ever posting of a bottle that got shut down and the person got removed from the group because it was counterfeit. They do a great job of tracking serial numbers on bottles, became a requirement to post a serial number out of any bottle that had one, and they could tell if that bottle was previously used on a counterfeit or not. And the article also mentioned how even Buffalo Trace employees themselves were counterfeiting bottles, not just people moving them through Facebook groups. As I mentioned before, the article really gets into instances where the distributors are really one of the main problems with secondary markets. Certain bars and restaurants who used to get bottles of allocated bourbon back when they weren't that popular, not that expensive, no longer can justify that bottle being on their bar for whatever reason. If it's now too much money for their clientele, if they're fearful that their bartenders are going to overpour it or just straight up take the bottle for themselves. That old hole-in-the-wall bar that used to get allocations of bourbon just doesn't have the clientele to justify the high price. So they're selling their allotment back to the distributor. He is selling it to someone like Paul, and they're all taking cuts from the secondary market price. The article goes on to talk about the basic economics of the secondary market. High demand, low supply. You're always going to get an inflated market value, especially when bourbon is so popular like it is today. I definitely recommend the article. It's really well written. I think they did a really good job of it. I'll link to it in the description down below if you want to check out the article or subscribe to Whisky Advocate. I think it's a great magazine. It's got lots of interesting reads, just like this one. Definitely worthwhile checking out. And let me know what you think. The secondary market, is it something that's ever going to go away? Will the big manufacturers try to take down these groups that buy and sell whiskey? Or is it a lost cause? When one goes down, another just pops up again. Let me know in the comments down below. Really interesting to hear your thoughts on the whole secondary market in general. If you participated, if you hate it, any and all comments welcome down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And until next time, have a good one, guys. Cheers.